This is Audible.
The Harvest Festival Murders. Written by Anna Elliott and Charles Veely. Narrated by Iona Campbell. Epigraph. The devil's finest trick is to persuade you that he does not exist. Charles Baudelaire, L'Espleen de Paris, 1869. They that sow in tears shall reap in joy. Psalm 126, verse 5. Prologue. Monday, 6th of October. If there was one thing the good people of Crofters Green had learned during 2 years of war, it was that hope could be cultivated like prize-winning marrows, with patience, determination, and a stubborn refusal to let the elements get the better of you. And on this particular October afternoon, as golden sunlight slanted across the fairgrounds below St. Mary's Church, hope was blooming as abundantly as Mrs. Henderson's late roses. "Magnificent," declared Reverend Philip Markham, surveying the festival preparations from the gentle slope that led down from his ancient churchyard to the village fairgrounds. "Absolutely magnificent." And indeed, it was rather magnificent, considering that everything had been accomplished with materials that were either rationed, requisitioned, or rescued from someone's attic. The white canvas tents that dotted the fairgrounds had been borrowed from the scouts. The bunting had been sewn from scraps of fabric too precious to waste, and the wooden signs pointing visitors toward preserves and pickles and guess the weight of the pumpkin had been lovingly hand-painted by the village children during their Sunday school lessons. Mrs. Agnes Whitfield, who had appointed herself chief coordinator of everything, a position she'd held unofficially for the past decade, stood beside the vicar with a clipboard clutched to her chest like a shield. "Do you really think people will come, Reverend? I mean, with all the uncertainty these days and the dreadful news about those merchant ships." "My dear Mrs. Whitfield," the vicar replied, his weathered face creasing into a smile, "they'll come precisely because of the uncertainty. Look around you. When did our little village last have something so purely joyful to celebrate? Something that shows we're all doing our bit, even if it's just a small part of the larger effort." He had a point. The past months had brought increasingly grim reports of merchant vessels lost to German submarines, rationing growing even tighter, and the constant worry that the lifeline of supplies from America and the Commonwealth might be severed entirely. But here, on these fairgrounds where the village had gathered for celebrations since medieval times, the fruits of their dig for victory efforts were on proud display. At the jam and preserves tent, Mrs. Henderson was arranging her wares with the precision of a museum curator. Each jar bore a handwritten label in her careful script: blackberry jam, with a hint of apple to stretch the sugar; pickled onions, father's recipe, 1923, and elderflower cordial, dilute to taste, it's stronger than it looks. Every jar represented hours of careful work, stretching rationed ingredients and making the most of what English soil could provide. "I do hope they're good enough, Reverend. It's been ever so difficult without proper sugar, and the news saying we might lose even more supply ships." "Mrs. Henderson," Reverend Markham said firmly, "every jar you've made is one less that needs to come across the Atlantic. That's not nothing. That's everything we can do to help." At this, Mrs. Henderson straightened with quiet pride. It was exactly the sort of gentle encouragement that kept spirits up when the wireless brought news of another convoy scattered by wolf packs. Over by the apple bobbing station, 9-year-old Tommy Baker was testing the water temperature with the seriousness of a scientist conducting a crucial experiment. His mother, Dorothy, watched with pride as her son took charge of his assigned task, knowing how much it meant to him to contribute something important, while his father, Tom, after the leg amputation that had brought him home from France, was now supporting the family as a self-employed carpenter. 70 degrees is perfect, Tommy," called out Mrs. Blackwood, the piano teacher, who was busy arranging song sheets for tomorrow's community singing. "Cold enough to make it sporting?" Tommy beamed with the particular glow